Hello and welcome to the fourth 6 weeks curriculum preview. Our focus this 6 weeks is on poetry and the analytical essay, which is an expository essay for the first 3 weeks. And the second 3 weeks is on Romeo and Juliet and on a timed analytical essay or an expository essay. So things to consider in the first 3 weeks, our standards ask us to analyze the effects of diction and imagery in poetry, to write a poem, and then to write an analytical essay. The second 3 weeks ask us to relate the figurative language of a literary work to its historical and cultural setting, which is very important in terms of Romeo and Juliet because Shakespearean language is going to be difficult for a lot of our students. So I think it's important to know why the language is what it is, and then how does that affect the work. Also, to analyze the effects of diction and imagery in poetry. Even though Shakespeare is written as a drama almost, it is poetic in form, so there's still diction and imagery within that text that can be analyzed. We're going to explain how dramatic conventions enhance dramatic text, specifically monologues, soliloquies, and things like that, and then why would the author include those, and what do those do for us as a participant in the drama and as a reader of the drama. We're going to analyze how authors develop complex yet believable characters through a range of literary devices, including character foils, and Shakespeare's known for those. We're going to also look at media literacy, write an analytical essay, expository, and then look at complex active and passive tenses and verbals, which include gerunds, infinitives, and participles. It's critical that we remember that our Figure 19 skills overlay with each one of these standards. 48% of our 2016 spring EOC was Figure 19, so we have to remember that half our test, which has gotten shorter because of the combined English and reading parts, is Figure 19. So those questions count for a lot, so we cannot isolate our individual skills from our metacognitive processes. It's also critical that we remember that our standards call for a continuous application of previously taught skills that students are able to continually apply in a more cohesive manner and in a harder context. So even though something might not be from our grade level, we still have to expect our students to be able to do it. So let's take a look at the EOC and see how these standards were tested in 2016. 2C and 3A we went over in the third 6 weeks preview, so you might want to go back to those and look at those. But let's look specifically at 5B. So 5B is asking us to really look at how an author develops characters. And the first question asks us to read some specific sentences from paragraph 3. And then these sentences imply that this person is what? So we're going to make an inference based on what we read about this character. And so this is telling us, the author's showing us some different things within these sentences, and we have to infer what the intention was about that. That's a pretty tough question. Another 5B question is just the character can best be described as. But if you look at the choices, they're almost opposite in nature, caring and critical, compassionate and stern. So you have to look at the whole paragraph and then say they're this in this section and this in this section. So it's a multiple step questioning. Another 5B question asks us to note the setting and how the setting suggests that what the character will do. So you have to take all the information you have about the character and then also look at the setting and see how it fits in with that, which is a different way of thinking about characterization because I don't think we've really focused in on what the character and the setting does. We tend to look at those as separate elements. It's important to note that also in assessment, I did a skills trace for the English 1 EOC on just editing. And on the test, there were 11 editing questions. None of those 11 questions were on 9th grade standards. They were tested on standards that started from the 2nd grade to the 7th grade. So it is critical that we do review those previously taught skills. We need to look at student writing for common errors, not just student writing that's a final product, but also look at their drafts, look at their reader responses, look at just things they jot down, because if we're seeing things that they're commonly doing, that's a good time for a mini lesson as a whole group. We can also use our No Red Ink to give some testing for those. One of the main questions was apostrophes, which were started in 2nd grade, and our students still were not catching apostrophe errors. It would also be helpful to develop a campus-wide expectation for some previously taught skills. So let's take apostrophes, for example. Should it matter what course you're in if you're using apostrophes correctly? It should not just be an English class. Capitalizing the pronoun I should be a non-negotiable in every course. So consider doing a campus-wide expectation for some of these basic skills and holding the kids responsible for those. And that might help us on our editing. When there's only 11 questions, every single one of them counts for a whole lot. Some resources to help you this 6 weeks. I found a great TED Talk on why Shakespeare. So when somebody goes, Miss, why do we have to study this? It's 2016. This was written, so long ago. This was a really interesting TED Talk about how Shakespeare affects you and why you should study it. Vocabulary tends to hold up our kids, and it's interesting to know how many words were invented by Shakespeare. The first one in this video is swagger, which is always a fun word for our kiddos, and then a mini biography from the Biography Channel, just to give them some background of who is the writer. There's also Texas Gateway resources that were written by TEA, so they would be very good to use to help our students on active and passive voices, including those verbals and gerunds, media literacy, use of irony, sarcasm, and paradox. And there's also resources for all sections of the expository essay. So if your students are struggling with a specific part of the expository essay, you could send them to a specific section to get some remediation or some instruction on their individual level. As always, I'm here to answer any questions. I look forward to seeing you soon.